All right, awesome. Thank you. So I am Allison Frenzel. I'm an education programs consultant with the California Department of Education, and my role there is to support arts, media, and entertainment career education programs in California and help connect schools to creative industry. And Matt, you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Allison. Hello, everybody. Great to see you. There's so many of you earlier today and in a few other sessions. So my name, again, is Matthew Waney. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I started off teaching Teach for America in rural Texas, where I taught English and drama, and moved to Los Angeles a few years after that, where I've been teaching in LA Unified specifically. So most of the schools I've been at have been low-income Title I schools. And my current place where I am at, I've been there for almost 10 years now. They brought me in. I also teach video production as well as animation. They brought me in to build that program out, and then just animation has always been something I've been fascinated with. I've worked in the industry primarily as a screenwriter and as a director of shorts and promos and stuff. But I've always just been really curious and fascinated with animation. So we started bringing that into our students as well. And just over the course of time, I've really found great partners along the way. We partnered with Warner Brothers, Nickelodeon, DreamWorks to really give my students that ability to sort of see what jobs are out there. And even though they're all from Los Angeles, weren't always aware that what jobs existed, and or parents who didn't understand exactly that, if you're doing art, can you really make money that way? So it's sort of been a whole community, family, student promotion within our program, sort of get the word out. So.
Yeah, and like Matt, I taught for 15 years before I was in this role. I ran an interdisciplinary performing arts program in Sonoma County, and so I come, and then I was the visual and performing arts coordinator and the career technical education coordinator at my small little one high school district. So, both of our backgrounds are in education, and part of my work when I was in the classroom was I was really determined to find meaningful career opportunities for students and realize that's a big challenge for teachers. And so as moving to the state role, I've tried to create a different infrastructure that allows people to plug into some of these opportunities instead of having to everybody do their own thing. So that's some of the work Matt and I have been doing together for the last couple of years with the BRIC Foundation specifically. So for those of you who are not familiar with what AME is, it's a CTE sector kind of unique to California, although the brand is kind of trending in other places. We are expanding. Other states are interested in exploring this as a sector as well. I finally got data from post-COVID. So there are actually 222,000 students in the state of California enrolled in AME programs. And we launched an AME workforce training initiative a few years back to try and figure out how to create a viable model through pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship, also high road training partnership and union pathways that help bridge high school with creative industry and jobs. And so this has been a grant program that many pilot high schools across the state have worked to build curriculum, to implement model programs, and to share best practice through an organization that we have as a partner for professional learning called the AME Institute. So Matt, I'll toss it to you. You're muted.
Let me unmute myself. So just as we've been able to reach out to partners across the state and across the nation, we've really been looking to find ways to just address the diversity, equity, inclusion issues. In that, BRIC's been talking about that, and they've really sort of been leaders in trying to help bridge that gap to get more students, get more people of color, people from underrepresented groups into that. And so when we sat down with all of our industry leaders, it was really finding ways that what they needed, what was out there, how do we train students better, how do we train individuals better to be able to be ready for those opportunities to get into the industry. And really sort of over the last 2 years, we've been able to make this happen with over 80 different people, 80 different institutions and companies, I should say, that have worked in the entertainment industry, all across gaming, VFX, and animation.
And I apologize if my internet is unstable. I'm in a hotel and it's getting weird. So just heads up on that. But to add on, the purpose of our work is really centered around what Matt said, listening to industry professionals to figure out what they need from young people, and then trying to help provide resources to teachers to provide the right type of education. And it's a long haul. It's not like a quick, immediate solution. And there's a lot of systems. We're basically building planes and all the parts of the planes and trying to fly it. And so there's a lot of folks on this call that have been really instrumental in helping that from both the teacher side and the industry side. Matt, will you let me know if I freeze? Because I can't see myself because I'm sharing screen. So
You're all good. Yep.
okay, cool. I'll advance then. So some of the big focus areas for our career tracks in AME are animation, visual effects, and games. That was kind of the first sector, thanks to BRIC, that brought together industry leaders to try and solve for some issues they were seeing. And this actually came out of the BRIC Summit a few years ago, where we came together and we said, okay, what's the best way to recruit people that are not your typical recruits, right? Like, how do you look beyond the fancy art schools and look into programs that might have just this like incredible raw talent without the resources that other fancy art schools have? And then how do we funnel resources to those schools and those programs to try and build high quality programs that can match the fancy art schools? And that's been really the challenge that we've been trying to solve. So these are the pathways or the career tracks. So animation, VFX, and games is the career track that BRIC really launched and started with us, bringing together those leaders. And there's additional career tracks in development for arts, media, and entertainment that have kind of parallel lanes. And all of these are leading to registered apprenticeships in the state of California that allow students who are not four-year college bound to have an alternative pathway into careers. So these are some of the areas that we've been building concurrently. The BRIC program is about a year in advance of these others, but I just wanted to share the scope of where our focus is. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Nope, I think that's all great.
All right, cool. All right, so Matt, go ahead.
Yep. So basically, as we've kind of talked about, really obviously had a connection with industry, but the workforce intermediaries, those are basically sort of the nexus to all of it. And that essentially is what BRIC is. So they kind of are that reach out point to bring all these different organizations together, whether it's the studios, media production companies, also from the nonprofit. There's a lot of partners that BRIC works with in the nonprofit world, as well as different government agencies, as well as training providers, as well as bringing in labor unions when that is applicable to what's going on and from the employees' part of view, as well as local education agencies. And those can be school districts, community colleges have played a part. Having worked with BRIC to help sort of launch their animation program, we reach out to high schools to sort of help them start building, how do we build that curriculum to get those students empowered and aware of what's going on so that they can then get to those community colleges to get some of those classes to expand their knowledge and ultimately move up to those apprenticeships and everybody else who's on this list.
So a lot of this work has really been centered around organizing all these people. It's like sometimes I use this analogy often, but like herding cats a little bit, because there's a lot of people who want to do good and there's a lot of organizations doing things and like sometimes tripping over each other, sometimes not really knowing how to interface with the school system, or not really understanding, like if you talk to this one person, that how is that going to become scalable, right? So I feel like it's been my role to really try and create some kind of cohesive collective structure where people can communicate effectively, share opportunities effectively, and come together to solve. And so the intermediaries that we have at the center of the workforce training initiative, which is BRIC, is core to the animation, visual effects, and games program that we're building and mapping to apprenticeship. There's a core organization that's a 501c3, generally, actually all of them, central to this bridge that we're building. So for instance, in live entertainment, we have the Even Foundation and Music Forward Foundation, and they're both deeply industry connected. Music Forward being Live Nation's leg, Even being composed of incredible industry partners, including like Coldplay's lighting designer, right? And so they're these really deeply industry connected organizations that can help bring people to the table, but then understand school and government infrastructure and nonsense, really, like things like procurement processes and like contracts, and like they'll get into the like horrid piece of the school and government roadblocks, they'll like move through those roadblocks, and then our industry partners can plug and play. So that's really what we're trying to do, is like centralize these incredible nonprofits to be the like, make it easier to work with schools people, because as you all know, that is sometimes too many barriers for people to even want to bother, right? So
And one
that
additional
has
thing I'd like to add in
the
there.
quintessential experience with that.
One thing I'd like to add in there, just from Brick's point of view, again, I know we've got a lot of people in here who have either planning to apply for the apprenticeship or have applied for the apprenticeship. One thing that Brick does as the intermediary is that, you know, depending upon what studio, what VFX studio house you're going to, you know, they're going to want you to know Nuke. They're going to want you to know Storyboard Pro. They're going to want you to know this and that. And so part of what Brick does is, if as you need that training, once you're in that apprenticeship program, or even as you're preparing for it, oh, you know, this school, if you're looking for Nuke, can train you in that. This school can do that, because at some places it is specialized. It's like their in-house thing at one studio is going to be different what they use in another one. So that's really what Brick is there, is serving as intermediary to be able to see what needs the apprentices have and be able to find connections to make that them to get the resources, whether it's classes, whether it's extra training, whether it's just, you know, mentor through that.
Yeah, and some of the work we're doing right now is to create these like summer, I'm calling them micro pre-apprenticeship programs or boot camps, where schools or students that are graduating seniors or graduating juniors going into their senior year can do this summer program and actually plug into a simulated work environment with industry professionals. So Brick's been doing this for a while through their internship program, but we're working with other organizations and other sectors to try and build a whole collection of those, but use like one uniform model where schools understand, okay, this is the price point, this is the application process, this is the structure. It's like, you know, 3 weeks, 3 hours a day. And then also build in an element. So use it with these nonprofit intermediaries, they can actually potentially provide student stipends where others can't. Schools can't pay students, right? Government can't pay students. So really trying to think through some of the challenges, because, you know, we all feel like the educational model should pivot a little bit. And that's what registered apprenticeship does, where like learning is free and you get paid for training on the job, instead of like work for free and pay to learn. So that's the whole goal, I think, in everything we're doing, is trying to figure out how do we create resources. In California, for those of you who are not California based, we have a lot of state funding going to career technical education programs. So schools actually have fairly decent funding across the state. And now with our arts education ballot measure, there's going to be even more funding for the arts. So it's not like schools are underfunded. I know it's a weird thing to say out loud, but it's not like public schools are underfunded right now in California for this particular niche. It's actually fairly easy for CTE programs to follow certain rules and regulations and get funding for their equipment and supplies. So it's really just a matter of like, how do we provide the opportunities that they can actually plug into? They might not all be free because people need to get paid, but like just having that menu, so to speak, for people to be able, schools to plug into. That's really the goal, and bringing these people together to develop those opportunities. So this, I just wanted to go through this slide really quick so you can kind of see who's involved in all this work. So part of our work, so what a high road training partnership is, and a lot of people don't know, it's like this program where labor partners, union partners, and industry work together. They don't negotiate. It's not the negotiating table. We're not fighting. We're coming together to solve for an issue, and an issue that has been determined to be pretty universal that we've seen in every single advisory group I participated in is the lack of diverse workforce. There is truly a glaring lack of inclusion and diversity in the entertainment industry across the board. In order to solve those things, it takes a village, right? So it's not just CDE, it's CDE and the California Film Commission's Career Readiness Program and the Division of Apprenticeship Standards allowing us to register, arts, media, and entertainment programs, and the California Department of Workforce Development Board funding high road training partnerships for the arts, media, and entertainment industry, all never have been done before. Like, this is an industry that's never, ever, ever, ever had the workforce development funding. And here we are now, where people are finally coming together. Community colleges are working with state and local government, are working with K-12 and adult education, and community-based training partners and employers and labor partners, all through this central intermediary that is pulling everyone together to figure out like a system. And so it does take time. Like, this isn't and this is an overused term, but like it's an ecosystem really. And so that's the work that we've been doing for the last 2 years to try and like formalize these relationships and like make it demystify really. So, just this is a lot, but I just wanted you to see kind of the scope of everyone involved and all the agencies and how complex this is to build when it's never been built and we're doing it. We meaning the 180 people that helped me write the standards and have worked with me over the last 2 years, and all the teachers, boots on ground. Thank you. It is not possible without you. So did you want to talk about this one, Matt?
Yep. So again, our program goals, you can see them here in front of you, is really designing high quality pre-apprenticeship programs and youth apprenticeship programs. Frick has launched its apprenticeship program, taking on its first cohort in the next month or so once it's all official. Frick also now has a pre-apprenticeship program that is officially recognized by the state of California as well. So that allows them the ability to go out and sort of help at the high school level, help at the middle school level, because again, building that pipeline as far down as we can to the younger kids will help to ensure it later on, which leads into number 2 of making sure there's ability to recruit that and to have these applications. And part of it coming out of COVID and organizations and companies continue this, there's a lot of online resources out there. There's people doing guest speakers, programs, different boot camps that can be virtual or in person. And we'll talk about some of the speakership opportunities later on. Number 3, making sure that the onboarding process goes very smoothly. And again, that's something Brick, where they're going to have a mentor for people who are getting on board onto the apprenticeship program. To help out with go to this training thing for your additional stuff on Nuke. So you're going to be meeting with your employer here and really helping to sort of lead the apprentice through that process. For establishing the network, as we've already sort of been talking about, and then number 5, making sure that it is registered with our career pathways as that has been done as well. So yeah, all these things again happening simultaneously, and then as the cohort 1 is starting to go through. They'll start getting ready to bring on to start open up the application for a second cohort later on in 2023.
Is that Matt's internet or mine? I'm sorry. Okay, you kind of like got weird, but I think it might be mine. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So this is the structure of what's happening in terms of like from start to finish, but it's starting small. Like I know, I mean, we had 450 applicants for the first cohort for like a small pilot of 6 to 12 humans. So there's never going to be like 450. I mean, I hate to say this, but we probably won't ever have 450 apprenticeship positions at once. But what we can do is provide all the resources so your students understand what goes into portfolio development. Like Janelle's on the call. She's part of my workforce cohort. They're all these core teachers are building free model curriculum to share out on how to teach the things. We have content partners like Unreal has made all of their educator resources completely free, full on projects, capstone projects, all the way down to introduction programs using Unreal for marketing. Like there are software companies that have leaned in hard to making their stuff free and accessible so this stuff could be taught. And now what we're trying to do is almost like curate a resource pool so that teachers know what to do to prep their students accurately. And it's still going to be competitive, right? Like that's something it's just like getting a job. Getting an apprenticeship is just like getting any other job, and it's up to the employers. But this adds a layer of wraparound support for the young people who are unlikely candidates. I mean, the goal is to support people who would not know or ever make it into that like super exclusive Warner trainee program that they get 3,000 applicants for. It's like, no, you have to look at these unlikely candidates. They might not have had the same opportunities and privilege, but they've got the grit, they've got the determination, they need a chance to, right? And so that's our job, is to really build that alternative kind of on-ramp into these super competitive spaces, I think. So, oh, was I supposed to talk about this? I think we flipped slides, so that's okay. I think I think we can both talk. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I was just say in this, educators in the room, this is sort of, as we break it down to the pre-apprenticeship program from grade 7 on up, that's sort of what we're looking to do, from starting off with like, exposure and awareness, little exploration, building up, the checks will obviously be what's happening at that grade level. The planning, the mentorship, the certification and training as they get a little bit older. And through my program, we've been working with the Nickelodeon. We're one of 3 in all of North America where I have my advanced animation kids have a mentorship with Nickelodeon. They have 3 different cohorts within the class. One group is doing 3D assets, 3D modeling. One is doing 2D animated shorts, and the third group is doing series development. The kids twice a month, they interact with the people at Nickelodeon. It's all virtual at this point. One is sort of a master class lesson that the artists go over with my students. And then later on in the month, the students can show what they've been working on for their specific project and get some feedback from them. And obviously, not everybody's working with Nickelodeon, but whether it's at a smaller nonprofit in your community or a smaller organization or business, there are different ways to be able to get that interaction with industry people, with people who can really sort of show your students what's going on and how to sort of take what they're learning in the classroom and get that portfolio, get their skills to what they're looking for ultimately for that job when they're 18 to 24. Allison?
Yeah, so these are the experiences we're trying to create access points for schools. So you don't all have to hustle and do them yourself. So Matt just shared out an experience that he and another teacher on the line are part of, Janelle Pickett, who's helping me with the waiting room. Thank you, Janelle. But there's also what we've done with the Visual Effects Society, which we'll share in a little bit, is creating an incredible speaker series that you can just zoom in, this incredible expert, like super experienced professional. And they're not just doing like a career talk, that's part of it, but they're like doing a lesson. So you then get all the video assets, you then get all of the slide decks, and you can then translate that into your own instruction, right? So we're just trying to continually build those pools and scale these opportunities, because there's so many schools and there's so many young people who want to learn, and we need to figure out a way to make things a little bit easier to drop into the classroom. So that's been what some of the work we're doing. And it's this, we'll talk a little bit more about that speaker series in just a sec. So we're going to just for a second talk, and a lot of you were a part of these calls, like Alton's here and CO. So we really worked backwards to map. We looked at, in this particular apprenticeship, we met with convened industry leaders. We discussed what issues they're seeing, challenges. We figured out, we need to map learning into free and public education spaces to make this viable. And then for a year, we convened to basically figure out what needs to be taught, and worked with a large group to do ideation, and then with smaller writing groups to refine that, and then with teachers to vet it and make sure it was teachable. And our product was a new set of, soon to be, hopefully, if the State Board of Education moves in a timely fashion, state standards for career technical education for California for arts, media, and entertainment. In the interim, we have an incredible 85-page guidance document that's been completely written by industry that is going to be published on the CDE website this week. It actually might already be up. And so that is a resource for teachers saying, hey, all these amazing industry professionals said this is what needs to be covered in your classes. Supplement your state standards with this resource, and you will be preparing your students for the jobs that are there and available. And so the other cool thing, so we wrote that, and then we developed these standards across, I don't know if 9 is the accurate number right now. I think it is for the BRIC apprenticeship, right?
Right, for the BRIC one it is, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea with the industry guidance document that was developed out of the BRIC advisory and then other advisories, because the document is all the pathways, was that we had to, instead of public education, just like, I remember very vividly Nicole, the first time she read the state standard, she was like, these are words that mean nothing. They are all edu-speak. What are they saying? And I was like, I don't know either. And I've had to teach them for a very long time. So the point being is that we had to make things super clear, super concise. Our one goal was to be like, if I read this sentence, I don't need an interpreter to tell me what it's saying. It says what it says. And if somebody was like, what does this mean? We rewrote it. And that was the whole protocol for this. And instead of mapping, the old state standards were mapped to arts disciplines. These state standards are mapped to occupations, and they're stacked and sequenced. So like cover this in your intro, cover this in your intermediate, cover this in your advanced tracks. And if you're teaching the registered apprenticeship, focus on these job specific, right? Not just vague generalist, but job specific tracks. And it's a lot. And you don't have to do it all, but like, that's where those pre-apprenticeship summer camps are going to come in. And I know Mia's here. You just texted me and I can't read, but Mia Johnson at California, or the LA County Arts and Culture, is doing like a media career pathways program. So there's going to be summer programs that are aligned with this, that are outside of school. We're working with like, I've had a conversation with the Boys and Girls Club and CoLab Youth and all these like expanded learning spaces to say, hey, this is now open source curriculum building material. Do what you will with it. So the more we align, the better, more resources we'll have inside and outside of classroom spaces. So that's been my goal. Matt, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing. They brought me on to help write to get these standards, the apprenticeship program approved. And we were approved both at the state level, California level, but also the Department of Labor federally. And for those of you who might be interested in applying for the apprenticeship, stuff like that, for this first year, we are doing it exclusively in California. But after 12 months, after we've done that for 1 year, it can actually be opened up to anyone across the United States. So if you are not in California right now, do not reside in California, by 2024, this will be open to people beyond that state as well. So I'd like to add that in.
Well, and big shout out to our pilot employer cohort, because some of you are here and it's just about, we're figuring it out together. Like we have to run through this cohort to figure out what works and what doesn't, so we can scale and have a structure. And so I think that's part of it, is everybody who's leaned into this work is up for the experiment and for the growth and for the ability to like figure it out with us, knowing that the answers are not concrete and the structure is not set yet. So, oops, I just pressed the wrong thing. Okay, there we are. So, we talked about partnerships, but I just want to give an extra big shout out to our initial partners in this work. We spent a lot of time working with the Visual Effects Society, with Women in Animation, and with the Animation Guild, and also with West LA College, because they they were the first to believe in us and to support us as the local education agency sponsor. And they're also launching some classes and softwares that are not being taught, like Nuke. So hopefully that's coming soon. But we have, we had a core team and we met like sometimes twice a week for a while to get this thing up and running. And so if it wasn't for folks on this slide, none of this would have ever happened. The cool part for me is that I think it's really important to have labor partners at the table, because there's, great union jobs out there that are sustainable and you have benefits and you can feed your family for a long time. And so we really wanted to make sure that this was going to get the support and guidance from the Animation Guild, and they have been incredible to work with. In fact, I'm working with them on building a K-8 feeder curriculum right now. So soon, so stay tuned for that. Go ahead, Matt. Uh-oh, are you muted again? Or
sorry, I keep muting myself there. Yeah, so as far as the BRIC apprenticeship program, if you're not familiar with it, these are 8 of the 9 occupations, from VFX artist to virtual production artist, tech artist, animator, storyboard artist, concept artist, background and digital effects artist. And then next year we'll roll out a producer manager role to be able to bring that. But these first 8 cohorts occupations are really focused a little more on the artistic elements to some degree, whether it's 3D, whether it's VFX, whether it's gaming, along the line with that.
And the names of these, I think, are slightly different now than they were. Like what we registered might be slightly different, but this is the gist of it. I don't know if we have a virtual production artist as like a thing that's actually registered, but it's 3D animation for the purpose of virtual production is a big piece of that. And I think, Alton, I don't know if you're still here, but that's something that I know that you've been working on a lot. So Oh yeah, you are still here. Hi. Okay, so this is, I think we're gonna do a Q&A. I think oh great, perfect timing for that. I'm so impressed with us. So before we do that, we'll draw, I don't know if you can see that QR. If you want more information on the, wait, Matt, is this the old QR or is this a new QR that you added?
That is the old one. I did drop the link to the website here in the chat.
Okay, yeah, don't use that QR. We learned the hard way that free QRs are fake and they always expire unless you do a paid subscription. I'm sure that's not the case everywhere, but that was our bad mistake on the site we built that one with. All right, and so the thing I wanted to share with you that's really exciting for me and what's been just absolutely incredible is this speaker series that I told you about. So 2 p.m. twice a week or twice a month, we are getting to hear from some of the top visual effects professionals in the field. And this is put together with the Visual Effects Society, and all of the past videos are recorded, and I can drop the chat into the chat when we're doing Q&A, how to access that on the Visual Effects Society webpage. But you can register for these and Zoom these people right into your classroom. And you get a Zoom link, you get a lesson plan if I remember to make it in time, which has been a fail last month, but I will get better and just do them all in advance. And you get the video recordings and some of the slide decks after. So you can continue to build your curriculum. And these are, this is being co-presented by Rose, who was like, I think the head of production at ILM for 20 years. She worked on the first Star Wars movies. And so she is just incredibly resourced and connected and pleasant to work with and has just been an incredible partner. So great opportunity for guest speakers. You just plug and play, sign up, they're live. We do a live Q&A with the teachers. We ask the teachers to work with their students to generate questions in advance based on research of who these people are. And then we open the floor up for a Q&A. So it's been really interactive and fun.
Yeah. And I'm signed up with this as well and had shared this with my class. And again, I teach video production and animation, and the time slot one time lined up with my film students. So they were able to see that. And it's not just animation per se, but obviously the effects and the visual effects are in live action as well. So I was able to show it to them, have them see the different jobs that are out there beyond what we focus on in that classroom, and then still be able to show that for my other classes since they are recorded and get to them later on.
Yeah, so we're going to go into Q&A, but that's, let me stop sharing so I can see humans. So I want to drop a bunch of resources in the chat because I know this was a resource share session as well. But first, let's have, I'm really bad at multitasking. So does anybody have any questions for Matt? While I start dropping some things we talked about in the chat. Don't be shy.
I did see somebody had asked if they could apply to the apprenticeship program even if they've graduated from college. Yes, you can. Sometimes, and this is sort of on the back end, there are different grants out there that are targeted to people of certain ages or people from certain communities. So sometimes there are limitations to that just from the grant side, but as far as the apprenticeship program, yeah, if you've got the ability, you've got the portfolio, you've got the skills, you don't have to be between 18 and 24. Somebody had asked about the direct links to the standards. I assume that's what that's what Allison's getting right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna upload it right now as a, actually, you know what, I think I just don't know if I upload it as a Google Doc, so it's gonna be an actual document that you're gonna have to download out of the chat, so heads up to that. Yeah, you can put questions in the chat. Ooh, Jeff, I want to talk about this because this was sorry, Mac, do you know how to get it? It's not on they haven't published the website yet. Okay, I just want to say answer this portfolio thing really quick, and then I'll get all this.
Wait, I'm sorry, do you want me to find the standard thing? Is that what you're asking?
Do you have the final? I don't know if you even have the final guidance document. So you talk about
answer Jeff's question.
Okay, so Jeff, we have had lots of interesting conversations with our industry partners around what is good and what defines good. And my whole piece was we have to define good. What we didn't realize when we collected 450 portfolios and several of our employers selected the same humans, we now have a definition of good and what should go in a portfolio for each of these jobs. So we're going to be able to deconstruct that information now effectively and deliver it to you. So then you will be like, oh, now I know exactly which assets to help students prepare for their portfolio. So coming soon, that was like an unintended, incredible, like aha moment for us. And Matt is working on a digital badging protocol. So you will then have an industry certification that using your portfolios saying, oh, wow, this asset demonstrates that you are competent in these skills, right? And that's the whole idea of a portfolio assessment. So that's all being built right now. Alton, I have
Wait, sorry,
three
can I
juvenile.
add a few?
Oh, go. You
Sorry,
add. Okay, I'm gonna do a thing, and
And-
then he talks, and then I'll answer all of his questions.
And Jeff and anybody else interested, and obviously, you know, if you're doing storyboard versus VFX, you know, those are different requirements. Those are different things. So as we build that out and start sharing that with educators, you'll be able to even see across the different occupations. So, you know, they'll kind of cluster together as far as what students need to do, but that will definitely be insightful for you guys. It's been insightful for us. And as she said, the BRIC, I'm working with BRIC to help launch this badging system, whereas students are getting ready to apply for the apprenticeship. If they've got amazing skills in storyboarding already, they can go in, take that, do the badging for storyboarding and get, you know, checked off on it. And these are all going to be, again, approved by industry as well. So that even some of that stuff, they'll still want to see portfolios. But if you can, as a teacher, high school, middle school, obviously middle school, they're not going to be doing the application, but they can already start knowing at the middle school level of what to start building up to, what to get those skills in. So it'll sort of be that twofold of knowing what's expected in the portfolio and this badging opportunity as well.
So, Alton, to talk to your question, one of the things that's been like a challenge is that we have a really one size fits all model in terms of career tech ed. So it's like you have to complete 300 hours of XYZ. Well, that's not possible in juvenile court and community schools. So what we're looking at this competency-based model to make this more accessible to them, where it's like, okay, you're being assessed on your learning, not your seat time, because we don't want to keep people in to finish a program. Like it has to be flexible. So I'm working with right now in our workforce training program. We have San Diego County Office of Education, Juvenile Court and Community Schools, and Kings County Juvenile Court and Community Schools. And they are the animation project from New York, which specializes in not only trauma-informed instruction, but working with incarcerated youth, is working now with the Kings County Office of Ed to build that program. And I know you are interested in this, and we can talk offline and we can plug in to that world. But in terms of the at-risk youth, it is important to note that every program that is funded with the California Department of Education workforce funding, apart from some schools that were grandfathered in, they are all Title I schools. So that is one of the important pieces of this, is that we provide resources to communities that have been traditionally under-resourced. So several of those students are qualified as at risk, but I also am working with continuation schools to make sure that this is occurring in those spaces and adult ed institutions. So all the things, and homeless shelters. A lot of work being done. Like Covenant House is in Hollywood, which I think we've spoken, is actually launching a pre-apprenticeship program through their digital dev. So trying to get into all the equity and access for all is my goal. Question. So for instance, video editing. Oh, so Jeff, and we need to catch up, by the way, for video editing, there's different intermediaries that are kind of central. There are a couple in the state that are working primarily on like video editing pathways. And I've connected you to Ricardo, I think, in the Handy Foundation. They are leading that way in terms of the employer buy-in and the jobs. They have a lot, their program is being registered right now. So I know I introduced you a long time ago, but we need to circle back. But the cool thing is, like, I worked with, oh, my internet's unstable. Am I freezing? Okay. Okay. So the editing standards on that document that I just shared, there's 2 tiers. So if you go into the film production focus area, we're calling them focus areas to supplement your pathways, right? They're not replacing them. There's a whole strand of post-production and editing standards now, because that's where we're seeing the employment needs. So it's very specific. That was written, Ricardo and I wrote that together along with Cynthia Canner, who's the head of post at HBO, and some other folks. So it's pretty legit. It's not like just, it's pretty legit. That's the way this document went. We'd work with big groups, then I'd sit one-on-one, like all the VFX stuff. Arnon, who's the head of VFX or the VP of visual effects at Sony Pictures, he sat with me for probably a total of like 7 hours refining this stuff. I mean, no joke. So it's been a lot of like one-to-one writing along with these groups. And then the teachers spent lots of time, a whole day in June, making sure this stuff was kind of sequenced appropriately and whatnot. So that's the other thing with the document I shared, it's all sequenced. And it starts with soft skills, or not soft, essential workplace skills, career readiness across industries, moves into like universal skills, like everyone has to know foundational content creation, moves into specific hard technical skills, and then into occupation specific skills. So it stacks. So that's that guidance document. Okay, more questions in the chat. Janelle, are you doing the VFX series? Have you been locked into that? Has it been going well? Do you have any feedback on that? I saw I don't know if you can talk. It's just, she put it in the chat. I keep calling her out. I know you're here.
One other opportunity I can talk about, again, going back to BRIC, you might be familiar with the BRIC's Creative Academies. They tend to do those once a quarter. And that was sort of what my program started off as, a pilot program. That was in person, and now a lot of them are virtual, and they've partnered up with Disney and Nickelodeon and DreamWorks to character development and background design and 3D modeling. Where that's another great thing. If you're an educator, make sure that you're on the BRIC newsletter, on their mail list, just because when those things go out, even if you're not in California, if you're not in Los Angeles, like those are things that your students can be a part of. They tend to be like 2 to 3 hours, sometimes on a Friday, sometimes on a weekend. Where your students can really go in, listen, and see industry people doing their craft, doing what they do in their job, to really sort of, one, just inform the kids and let them explore that opportunity and really start to sort of see how their skill set could fit into that, or, oh, now I'm interested in it, now I'm going to explore, learn about that a little bit more on my own. But check that out as well, if you aren't already on their mailing list.
Yeah, and so there's a link. Let me drop that link or that flyer in the chat, in the folder actually, and then you'll kind of get the lessons that they're kind of lessons. They're like actually just a handout that you can do in advance with your student if you want to print it out. And then there's some like post activities for further research kind of thing. So let me put that folder in the chat as well for the Visual Effects Society and the resources. We need to add the decks, but at least you'll have the first two. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the VES, like the archive or the library, so you can see. I need to make that. It's on the to-do list. Any other questions? Mia, do you want to talk at all about the resources the county's focusing on in terms of alignment to this, and like the Creative Careers Online portal, and share out any resources you have while I drop some stuff in the chat? Oh, you're muted or something. We can't hear you. You're not muted, but I can't hear you. I think it's probably it's weird.
How about now?
Yep, you're good. You were good. Not good now. It worked for a minute.
I did drop the link in for the next BRIC Creative Academy, which is in May. So you guys want to check that out.
Yeah, and I'm gonna drop in. So you have to go to the bit.ly to sign up for the speaker series. Then once you sign up, you get an email. Nicole sends the email to everybody who signed up right before, and then you get all the information. And I'm gonna find the.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
I can't hear you, but okay.
You're good.
We'll work it out. Hi, my name is Mia Johnson. I'm with LA County Department of Arts and Culture. I oversee the Creative Career Pathways for Youth initiative. This was an initiative born out of our Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative, drafted by the County Board of Supervisors, really just trying to expand access for underrepresented young people ages 16 to 24. We know that most young people have some form of arts education, but what we found in our field scan is that certain groups have less access, or they don't get the access until later in life. And so this initiative is about leveraging and aligning the resources that already exist, the promising practices that are already in the field. And so one of the ways that we want to harness that is through our website, Creative Careers Online. And I'll drop the link in the chat. But basically what this is a partnership with Gladio and LA County Department of Arts and Culture and Create California. And the idea here is to allow young people to have a free resource to basically have direct access to creatives who have an interesting journey or path to success. And so there are videos and information about the career paths themselves, including many of the ones that we talked about today and at this summit. For example, there's a grip, Dijon Ellis talking about his path to becoming a grip. There's Carla Farmer talking about her pathway to becoming a hair and makeup artist on films like Coming to America. And then there's real factual data like the median salary ranges and what type of programs are out there for you to be able to begin this journey into a particular career. I will say this, the website will be improved in the future to where we'll have many of the programs mentioned featured on the site, a whole profile about the programs that exist in Los Angeles County and California abroad. So this partnership with the groups that we've been talking about today will allow for us to basically feature a lot of the apprenticeship programs as well. So I am available and I'm going to be speaking in the next session.
Yeah, and so that's our last words. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight everybody who is in this next session. So I've got John Webb here. I've got Mia Johnson. I've got Daniel. Who else? I don't have it in front of me. Is anybody else? Colette, I'm so sorry for the closed captioning situation. We promise we'll get it to you. Appreciate you being here. Who else is in this session? Oh, Diana. Isn't it cool too? Everyone is, right? Like this is our Ask Me Anything session for everyone, right? Okay. Wait, why did everyone go away when I pinned you?
I'm glad we didn't have to change rooms.
No, we don't. I just added pins and then Diana. Okay, let's try this again. Add pin. It was like when I pinned Diana, she kicked everyone else off. Add pin. Add pin. All right. I think we're all here. Oh, wait, me. All right. I think, is that all of us?
Yes. You have to get Diana again.
No, she's here. She's on my pin.
Oh, okay.
Do you not see her? Okay, Diana, you're pinned. I see you.
Okay, I don't see my pin, but if
Okay,
all of you can see me, that's totally great.
It says you're pinned, so I'm hoping that you are. Sweet. Okay, cool. So this session is called Ask Me Anything, and it's basically a continuation of our FAQ, and I'm not sure, we're gonna give it a second. It's just now 4 o'clock. And so we want to give people a second to enter the room, and then we will go ahead and start with intros in about 2 minutes. Diana is not pinned, but Daniel is. Okay, let me try spotlights. Diana is pinned on mine. I'd have to remove her pin, but let me go ahead and add spotlight. Continue. Let's try this again. Let me see if I can add spotlight to everyone.
I think that worked.
Did that work? All right, cool. Yeah, it says everyone's spotlight now, so hopefully we're good. Great, thanks, Janelle. We have 20 participants here, and I'm wondering, Janelle, are you still managing my weight room? I think you are. Do you mind? I think we're good right now. Okay. Thank you, friend. Oh, Wayne, you're not in this group? We'll leave you pinned just for fun, unless you want to leave.
Sounds good, no?
Okay. Stacey might be mad at me because I'm such a rule breaker. Sorry, Stacey, I love you. Okay, let's see here. All right, we're gonna just go ahead and get started. It's 4:02, and as people trickle in, we can catch them up. So we have a wonderful cross-section of educators here in this Ask Me Anything session. Everybody with a vast variety of experience and expertise. And so we're gonna start with introductions. I pulled Wayne in because he's here, might as well be part of the party and answer questions if people have any, since he was kind of core in building all this stuff with us. But we're going to go around and let you each introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your jobs, how new you are to teaching or how long you've been teaching. We intentionally have a range of experience because I think it's really important for people to hear, like, Daniel, this is his first year as a CTE teacher, but he has a long time of experience teaching at-risk youth in different community-based programs, whereas others like Matt Waney and John Webb have been in the CTE classroom for a long time. So really getting that perspective is important. And as we start, and then Diana coming in with a post-secondary experience and perspective, but also working in like early education in her former hats, multiple hats that she's worn, and Mia in post-secondary education as in addition to community-based education. And then Mia is a high school teacher. Both Matt and I both have academic teaching credentials as well as CTE teaching credentials. And I am now, and John, you do too, right? Or are you CTE exclusive? I think you might be CTE. I think your audio is off. Everyone unmute who's on the AMA because this is a super cash session and we're just going to kind of listen to the audience.
Yeah, I'm CTE exclusive.
Cool. Yeah, see, we have a range. I love it. Okay. So, so it's a chance for the audience to engage with the presenters here and just like thinking about all the stuff that's been synthesized throughout your day, and now you get to just dive in and ask questions. But first we're going to do a round of intros while we wait for people to continue to arrive. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Daniel. Want to introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your background and then where you are right now, where you're teaching and what you're teaching.
Okay, hello all. I am Daniel, or Mojo. And I've been teaching since I was a youth myself, from the age of 14. I started with helping youth that was around the same age as me, but in after school programs, and started teaching there, and then assistant teaching, and then ever since then I've just had a love for ever since I was a child I had a love for video game design since Atari. And so once I first held a video game controller in my hand, I knew that's what I was going to be doing. So being able to teach in the classroom now formally is just a blessing and a gift of like being the best of both worlds, actually, because I'm able to show kids, like empower them with the tools and everything that's at their fingertips they may not know about, and empower them to like put their futures into their own hands. So yeah, just teaching is just something I love to do, and seeing kids that aren't necessarily, they don't necessarily know that they're interested in something, and then coming like after they come along and see that, wow, I did this, and they like super excited about the outcome and didn't even think that they would be interested in doing something like this prior. It's just so rewarding. Yeah.
So Daniel teaches at Compton and he started this year.
Sorry.
What school specific?
Dominguez High.
Yeah, I teaches at Dominguez High School, and they had the hardest time finding, like they actually created a games program for Daniel. They created a pathway specific to map to this apprenticeship, and it has been an amazing partnership, I think, in terms of what a passionate educator going into a school that is like, is the ability to build a program from the ground up. So it's been super exciting. He's their favorite CT teacher right now. I'm just kidding. Okay, not really. Okay, Matt, go ahead. And I know some of these people know you, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Waney. I've been teaching for over 25 years. I started in doing Teach for America. I was in rural Texas, literally like a tenth of a mile off the border. So a lot of my students came across the border Monday morning, stayed with relatives for the whole week, and then went back just to get a chance to improve their education. I taught English there. I started off as an English teacher and did drama as well. I guess I said I'd help out with their drama department. They're like, we don't have one. Can you create one? So I did that. Ultimately moved to Los Angeles. I've taught college classes. I did work in the industry as a screenwriter primarily. Also did some directing for shorts and some music videos and stuff. But always continued to teach. And I've been teaching LA Unified for the last 18 years or so. At the school I'm currently at, I've been there for almost 10 years. It's a Title I school right in downtown Los Angeles. My students, they brought me in there to build a video production program. And the year after that, we did animation. So we have both of those pathways going. And again, living in the, essentially the heart of Los Angeles, a lot of my students just, didn't really envision or even see like animation or working in Hollywood as an opportunity or for them. Because they just didn't have that experience to actually have even though they had phones in their hands of how to like use that to do it in a professional way. And so we've sort of built all that stuff up specifically from animation, just we did a lot of stop motion those first couple of years because all I had was a couple of cameras and that was it. And I've written a lot of grants along the way as well, over $2 million at this point, just to really sort of bring some of that technology to my students. And now we've got like Cintiq drawing tablets in there. We got great computers. Excuse me. We got partnerships with Nickelodeon and DreamWorks that we've been working with along the way. And now my kids are actually sort of see themselves as an opportunity to that. And probably the biggest thing, and then I'll pass it on, is just, a lot of my students, like, they don't really envision themselves as artists along the way. And it just took a couple of years to really be like, that's okay. And that's, we don't need you to be drawing at Pixar and Disney level, but it's like, almost half of the jobs in animation, like you don't need to know how to draw, like understand drawing, be able to speak to it, be able to like give feedback and comments to it. But like there's so much stuff beyond that. And now just we've got kids doing 3D design with Blender. We've got a partnership with Nickelodeon that is pretty amazing, where our kids are doing 3D design, 2D shorts, and developing series ideas to pitch with their mentors at Nickelodeon. So it's just really a great opportunities where we've been able to sort of get the kids, once you get that stuff in their hands and that opportunity, they're just like running with it and just absorbing it. So looking forward to talking to everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And John. Oh, sorry. I went all Matt. No, we're going to Mia. Sorry. You're going to have to wait, John.
But I felt like I had did a intro a minute ago in the last. I'll try to keep it brief to the point of the question you asked, Allison. So I like to say I've been teaching from grade school to graduate school. So I've taught as young as fourth graders in traditional grade school. I've also taught at the high school level at Santee High, Antelope Valley Youth Build, which is an amazing workforce development program that really transforms lives through leadership development and workforce development. And from there, I spent the last 15 years teaching in the School of Business at the University of Phoenix. But I really find that my passion is really being able to provide young people with resources and access to careers. And so that landed me kind of in the public ally space, which is an AmeriCorps program that focuses on leadership development in the nonprofit arena. I'm currently getting my doctorate in education and leadership. And one of the key areas I plan to focus on within my dissertation is to really explore how workforce development and career pathways support young people from underrepresented communities. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where I am. And the intro before was that I'm currently at the Department of Arts and Culture overseeing the Creative Career Pathways for Youth initiative. And Creative Careers Online is our resource for that. And I'll drop that in the chat again. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mia. And now you can go, John. Sorry, Diana.
No worries. I'm Jonathan Webb. I teach the CTE animation pathway at School for the Visual Arts and Humanities. This is my 11th year with LA Unified as a CTE teacher. Before that, I did some independent animation workshops where I would go to different local libraries, LA County, Inglewood, where I'm originally from. And I taught animation workshops, mostly to primary and secondary school students. And they would usually be like a 2-weekend sort of engagement, and then it would also be seasonal. And then I was recruited by the arts branch, pardon me, for LAUSD, and I taught as an itinerant animation teacher before getting hired at School for the Visual Arts and Humanities. My main goal, which was on my very first grant, my Perkins grant, my central goal has been to develop my students as generalists in all the different features required for doing short films, so that they can produce films of such production quality that they can get accepted into Academy recognized film festivals. And that's still my goal. This year, I've had my first student that was participating as an editor on a film that was accepted. And so I can mark that as a milestone. I want to have all of my students in that pipeline end up with that result, because they can use those films and IMDb credits and their reels as like a resume builder, and also, you know, gain entry and access to these studios so that they can get employment. And it just makes them more competitive overall. So that's been my focus, and I want to continue with it.
Thanks, John. And last but not least, Diana Keeler, our BRIC apprenticeship coordinator and professor at Occidental College.
Thank you, Allison. Hi, everyone. As Allison mentioned, if anybody has questions about the apprenticeship program with BRIC, I'm more than happy to answer those. In terms of education, I've been a classroom teacher for 21 years, and I started in elementary education. My teaching credential was almost complete, and then I realized I was not a morning person. I had to do my half-day teaching, and I picked the afternoon, and then there was just something about being on site at 7 a.m. that I just decided I could not do for the rest of my life. So I have immense respect for elementary school teachers and waking up and having that enthusiasm. And then I was just trying to figure out where I fit in, and also where I can sleep in as an educator. And so I moved to high school and taught high school math for a little bit with Algebra 2 and trigonometry and pre-calc. And then there's something about teaching the exact same thing every day, multiple times every year. So immense respect for high school teachers as well. And then I continued on my journey as my college advisor called me back and said, you know, we're looking for a film equipment manager, and you were great as a student. I don't know if you're looking for a job. Are you interested in that? And I was like, sure, you know, I'll give that a go, give that a try. And 1 year in, we rebranded from being a film department to a media department, but none of our curriculum changed. And so I looked at that as an opportunity, because I was also teaching for Adobe at the same time, as to like, what if we brought in Photoshop and things like that? Because if our students are graduating with a degree in media, they should have more skills than just learning how to use a camera and cut together a movie. And it coincided with Final Cut 7 dying. So then we decided, are we going to become an Avid school? Are we going to be a Premiere school? What's the plan? And I was like, well, if we got Premiere, then we can get all the Photoshop licenses and After Effects and all the things that I was hoping we could teach. So I kind of pushed us in that direction. And this has now been my 11th year teaching over there. And I teach digital design, UI UX design, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, color grading, VFX compositing, and cinematography in people's classes. And then outside, I work with a lot of community organizations like STEAM Coders. I work with Art Center College of Design and some of their high school outreach programs. Kid Nation, which is an organization co-founded by Ludacris that does arts. So it's actually how I got connected with BRIC, because we did the keynote last year. And we are trying to increase media diversity and engagement from younger and younger, because all these companies say they want to be diverse, but that means that we have to start earlier. And that's kind of where my work lies.
Thank you. And I was a classroom teacher also for 15 years before I moved into state work, which is a big pivot. And I actually taught dance and English and ran an interdisciplinary performing arts program. And it was a California Partnership Academy, which is a specialized program that is around interdisciplinary learning. And so you integrate career technical education into your academics. So there's an English, a social studies, kind of like linked learning for those of you who are familiar with that. a social studies program and then your arts program, and all the teachers collaborate and work together, and it's very project based. And so that was my background. I launched and ran one of those programs. I taught second grade for one summer, Diana, and pivoted and said, not for me. So I actually have my multiple subject credential, as well as my single subject English, supplemental authorization in dance, and CTE credential, because I taught at a dance studio and choreographed for a pre-professional company for a long time. So, and I still have my alumni company, which I love. So my background is not in animation, but I have a pretty wide, I work very closely with all the sectors now in my role at the state. I am the arts, media, and entertainment industry sector lead. And I have learned so much from all the humans I work with, where I can talk the talk and I can kind of know what I'm talking about across a lot of different sectors now. I know the words, that's what I always say. So this is a chance for you all to be able to, now that you kind of have a background on this panel, and we are here to answer your questions. And I wanted you to get a little insight into who was here, so you can ask the questions targeted towards individuals. So because this is a interactive panel, the audience is now, it is your turn to engage. And I'm going to look in the chat and see if anything's happened there since we started. Jeff. Okay, this is a great question for our current teachers in the classroom. There's been an uptick in student apathy and dissociation since the pandemic. How have you balanced supporting them, but also keeping them accountable? So do you have a particular individual that you want to ask that question to, or just whoever?
Well, when hearing from Matt, he's more like kind of where I'm at. I'm a video production teacher as well. So I like to hear what Matt has to say, but then if anyone else wants to chime in as well, I like to hear from, everyone's kind of take on that. So I know that's one of those things that has been a bit of a struggle with some other, colleagues and I, so.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely still an issue. We've been back in the classroom for, I guess almost a full year now, fully, but, the kids are definitely still have issues, still have challenges. A lot of the stuff that we sort of pivoted to during COVID and being out of the classroom, kids are still shooting a lot on their phones, and they sort of got used to it. And they're like, oh, I'm really good at this one app editing stuff. So, that's a specific thing, but bringing that back up, really, it's like this year I'm trying to catch people up, because even with my advanced kids, we're taking the premier certification exam at the end of the year. And normally they would have had their whole introductory year learning on that, but our kids didn't have access to that at their homes. So again, they've got the techniques, and that's what I always tell them. It's like, sure, the buttons might be different, the layout might be slightly different, but it's like, how to edit, how to do these things. Now we just have to go back and make sure how to do it within the interface of that. But it's really, I keep my projects really, there's always like a personal element to it. If they're doing a documentary, if they're doing, I start my intro kids off with like a 1-minute video resume where they think about their future and what they want to do and go into and stuff like that. So I think that definitely helps out. And one thing that I've done is I've done a lot of, even like I try to do individual assignments for that first year as much as I can, because I want them all to sort of learn that editing process. But I've done a lot more of like, all right, group of 4, you guys edit, or I'm sorry, you guys all shoot together and do all that stuff together. And then you've got your team's got a whole pool of footage. And like, if everybody doesn't edit out of that, I'm going to get 4 different edits from all that same footage. So they're still like doing a lot of stuff team-wise, work-wise, collaborating, but still able to like have the time to learn the skills individually along the way. So I'll throw it out to other educators here as well.
Well, Matt, I think, also just like an interpretation is like, I think it's an engagement question. Like, are you having a struggle with getting kids to do the things, And so that you're in kind of a unique position because you have kids for a very long time. So they know you, and the younger you have them, the nicer they are. But I'm going to toss that to Daniel, because from what I know, Daniel stepped into a world, and a lot of those kids didn't even know they didn't sign up for that class. And so how have you successfully engaged your disengaged students this year? Oh, you're muted, or I can't hear you. I don't know why. You're not muted, but I can't hear you. Do you guys hear him? I'll let you fix audio and toss it to John.
Sorry, I was having the same issue. What I've tried to do is a lot like what I just heard from Mr. Waney. I've given students the opportunity to work on more individualized, differentiated instruction. So like projects that they could do smaller skill building on their own. And that way I could work with students individually rather than trying to give like a big lecture to everyone or try to show like global skills. I would like pre-record whatever the skills are into 1 or 2 minute videos. And then I give them a project brief that's much smaller than the longer linked learning ones that we do that are like 2 and 3 weeks long. And so I would try to work directly with those students as much as possible. Now, the disengagement also sometimes manifests as students coming in late or just not paying attention. And so in those cases, you still just try to manage it among the other issues that might come up and try to put as much time and focus into the students that need it the most and give more autonomy to the students that can handle it. So I also have like Cintiqs. I do have video cameras in my classroom, but honestly, we only use those on a couple projects because I want the students to learn how to manipulate the CG rigs. But we also have done a little bit of VFX, and so I can more or less front load those projects, hand those off earlier on if I see that there's a larger group of students that are not engaged. So that way I can bring them up to speed and then get back to the normal flow that I intend at the beginning. Because I always have like a master plan of what my year is going to be like, but things happen. You know, sometimes students are really excited and they might even perform beyond what that original scope was. And those are great years. But yeah, I've also kind of experienced a significant number of students this year that have been disengaged. And so I just try to give more personalized instruction in those cases.
Mojo, you want to hit it? You want to see if it works? So weird. We have fine audio. I wonder what happened. I wonder if there's.
Yeah. Oh, there he goes.
It's. No. You want to log off and hop back on? All right.
I can chime in the meantime. 2 things I've added in my class since the pandemic started. First thing is I put in my syllabus from day 1 we just have a class policy of not going MIA. And I preface that with my students saying, you know, first of all, I'm going to be very concerned if you just stop coming to my class because I teach college students and oftentimes they have internships or life things. And I'm like, you know, I understand if you have to miss a class or if you have like an amazing opportunity and you just want to do that day instead, that's okay. I just need you to communicate that with me. And that created such a drastic change for my first semester where I would just lose students and have to hunt them down. And it was a much more proactive upfront, just communicate with me and let me know. And through that first semester that I did that, I got a lot of emails just being like, hey, I'm just like not feeling it today. And then I know to follow up with that student versus like, hey, my assignment, I couldn't finish my assignment, so I won't be in class. And I'm like, wait, no, don't do that. Come to class anyways so you can see everybody else's and we'll get you caught up after. Second thing that I started doing that has been really great is I do a spreadsheet of everybody's thing. And you're probably like, spreadsheet, that's so much work. For me, because I just have so much going on all the time, anything that I add to my classroom, I always try to make sure it's manageable and sustainable for the semester. So all I do is I put everybody's name on one side, and then I have a little checkbox next to that. And I try to make an effort of getting through my whole class with some kind of check-in outside of class. And it might even just be like they walk down the hallway and we're like, I got the internship or something like that. And I like go and check their box, like checked in with them. And if I haven't heard from them in a while, I'll send them like a 1-sentence email like, hey, I liked something specific that you did in class today. And that kind of just opens the door and lets them know, like, I'm here, I'm easy to talk to. If there's something going on, please communicate with me. Because it's been really hard. I teach the senior class, and a lot of them have just like burnout and internships and worries about life. And I think that has helped tremendously.
Great, thank you. You want to see if your audio is working?
Hello?
Yeah,
Can
there
you
you
hear me
go. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and jump in and then Mia, you can go after.
Okay, thank you for your patience, everyone, working with me through that. Yeah, so one of the things that I do in class, the first 10 minutes before, like when we get into class, I'll give it to them. I let them unwind and get the whatever they have in the mornings or whatever the previous classes or whatever. I give them the first 10 minutes to gather their thoughts, but I have them just get prepared as they're doing that. So get out the computers, open up their projects. And then some of the other things like that really got a lot of people that, well, a lot of the students that weren't, I felt like they didn't really know if they were into it or not. Like when I start mentioning like how simple the things were to get into and the pay for like some of the like the beginning rules and the experience that I hope that they'll have when they get out of the class, and being able to empower them with the ability to like go and do things independently outside of that to build on their skills after, like outside of school, and the fact that they'll be able to actually start their own business with some of the skills that they're learning and getting them in the position for that, like that got a lot of them engaged in like when it comes to some of the things that we're working on in class. I actually built a website for them that all of the past projects that we do, so they can go back in and like follow the steps, and I'm gonna update them with videos also, but having something that they can go back to if they like don't remember all the steps, so they won't so they'll have something to lean on, kind of to keep them refreshed with what we worked on in the past. But also just being open to let them I guess like see that the like other people in the class, the ones that are like really focused in what we're doing, like the people that are the students that kind of fall behind have I see that some of the students that get it more than the others, they lend a helping hand and be there for their students, and they say, oh, my neighbor can get it, then maybe I can do this also. So just giving them that as well, but also going around after I teach a lesson, I go through with each student individually and sit with them and see like where they are and walk through them step by step with it until they have it. So yeah, things like that.
Well, and that was something that one of your CTE coordinators, your district specifically told me. She's like, Daniel is never behind his desk, ever, ever. He is never behind his desk. He is sitting with students every time, or running from student to student.
So I get my steps in.
Right? I mean, so I think, and that's something that stands out that I think is they understand that you want to help and want to contribute. And so it reads like, when I was in the classroom, I'm not going to let me talk, but I mean, the one thing that worked for me is like, they have to meet you halfway, but you have to like lean in order for that to happen. And I know all the teachers here do that clearly because you're here on a Saturday. But I mean, what it looks different. Each student's different, you know? And so what that looks like might vary and need to be individualized. And I think that was my winning recipe for student engagement. And it's not a one size fits all. I know, Mia, you wanted to say something next. So
I just wanted to add to what was shared a minute ago, and that is, it's actually not waiting until they're checked out. It's actually making sure from day one you build a relationship with each student to where they feel open and candid, and coming to you, and they don't feel that they're going to be there's going to be some punitive reaction, specifically in the environment that I think about. Right now, we don't know what their home circumstances are. And so, during the pandemic, I was teaching online first for 2 years at University of Phoenix. And I could tell folks had their cell phones on while they were doing 1,000 other things. It's all good. I get it. But at the same time, be participatory. Let me know what's going on with you on the side, but also participate in class just a little bit. And then that way I can take a little bit from that. What I also realized is that by building that personal connection with the student, once we got into class and we had to go back in person, it was challenging for folks physically. It was daunting. And so I started to talk about my struggles, right? Like I struggle working from home, trying to manage and balance work life and teaching and students. And and grandkids and whatever. And I felt that students were much more open with their circumstances when you're able to at least be transparent about your own.
When you can align with them, absolutely, 100%,
And
absolutely.
I know that, and that kind of reminds me. So some of you may have heard the story of my favorite teacher story. So there's a kid. I had him for years. I did independent study credit recovery with him because he failed like freshman and sophomore year. He never turned in one assignment in my English classes in 2 years, but I literally created exams just so that kid would pass my class because he never took notes. He never turned anything in, but he set the curve on every exam. And in the end, he scored a 98 out of 99 on the ASVAB. So like we have different like you can't have one style, like it's like not this one project for everybody. Like Trevor wasn't going to do that.
because everybody's an individual, so you cannot come with the same recipe for the next student and the student next to them and the student. It's impossible because they're all individuals, and they didn't have the same thing for breakfast and they didn't sleep in the same situation as the other kids. So you can't bring that same recipe to each.
Yeah, and it's like with that particular example, everyone else, those tests were just another assignment. Like I didn't care about the grades. I just gave the test so Trevor could pass my class. And it was good practice for the other kids who had to go to college and or wanted to go to college or whatever. And they needed to learn how to take tests. Like a test was an assessment, but half of test taking is learning how to take tests, right? Like, so anyways, everyone wins in the end, but like there's sometimes you just have to like figure out, okay, like this kid's failing everything. Maybe that's just because it's like school's not for him. He can't play the game of school. Turns out the kids did great. Yeah. He was like, so a lot of it is just like figuring out all the different games and teaching them how to play them. And I hate to say that, I'm like a lifetime educator. I believe in education and I believe school is important, but I also think like 80% of it is the game of school.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be the Trevor. I was that kid. And I straight up had a teacher tell me that my 6th grade teacher told me I was not going to be anything. Took me out in the hall and said that to me. It's like, okay, 13 years old. It's a lot to deal with, but like, it's you cannot expect the same results using the same thing with everyone. So yeah, and I feel like if more teachers sat with their students individually, then we would have more students passing and not this big gap in that as well.
Yeah, it's so much work. Being a teacher is the hardest job. I have so much respect. I mean, thank you all again, because I burned out. I mean, frankly, like truth be told. So I think it's just like this amazing job that takes so much effort and energy, and you're all just so appreciated. So Diana, there is a question for you around portfolios, and so you want to go ahead and take that. It's what makes a portfolio stand out when it comes to apprenticeship applications.
Yes, and I know we have a couple of apprenticeship people in here. So I will just say, first and foremost, all of your portfolios were so amazing. We got an overwhelming number of applications, over 400, and we reviewed each one thoroughly and personally, where we like read your origin stories. We took a look at those samples that you pulled. We looked at your websites as well. And if you haven't received an email from me yet, I'm trying to get through the remaining few this weekend, but hopefully the majority of you have gotten an email at least through our first pass. In terms of applying, to make those stand out a little bit more, what we really like seeing is process. So if you're submitting something for character design or something like that, don't just give us your final renders. We want to see how you ideate, how you put together your references, what are your initial sketches, and kind of how you arrived at the final product, because that also helps us match you with our employer partners and kind of see where you would best fit in. I would also say curate your work a little bit rather than giving us everything that you've made so far. We kind of really want to get a good sense of your style and what you're most proud of, because that's also what we'll talk to you about if you get an interview. And so we want to see kind of like, if you were to self-select your own work, which ones do you think are best and why? And then lastly, of just like taking the time to tell us who you are. We have a limited number of seats, and we want to make sure too that they're going out to people that are a good fit with BRIC specifically and at a point in their lives that they would really benefit from this opportunity. So instead of just kind of sending us a standard email that you use for all of your internship applications, they're really taking a look at our mission and what we're looking for. Yay, and thank you for putting that in the chat. I also see the other question about like getting in touch with opportunities. So you can see we just posted some links in there about the apprenticeship application. Can we also post links about just how to sign up for the BRIC newsletter and get in contact with us, because we have a couple of exciting opportunities coming up. Like I'm sure that some of you have seen our portfolio reviews during Summit as well. And so we have ongoing initiatives throughout the year.
I have a little gem that I can also share that was sent to us as a sample portfolio from one of our employers. If it's still live, I will try and find it. So, I think Diana spoke about process, but what we're really trying to also think through is like, how do we prepare teachers with the information they need to teach the things that should go in a portfolio, and how do we, right? And so that I said this in the last session, but like the cool unintended result of having 450 portfolios now and having employers look through those and identify exemplars. We now have exemplars that we can share with teachers, and we can deconstruct those portfolios to align with like asset development and what needs to be created, right? And so this is a process that's going to be evolving. So, it's all, we're kind of building the plane and all the parts as it flies, and Diana's doing an insane job tracking and having an educator lens on this is so important. In terms of the question around reaching out to you about opportunities at BRIC, sign up for their emailing list and listserv. I think that is a huge #1 step if you're not involved there. And we also are going to be putting together, I do an e-blast in partnership with the AME Institute. And that e-blast has a ton of, every month it goes out with a ton of stuff going on, whether it's a masterclass series or professional development workshop or whatever people send to us, discounts on things, scholarship opportunities, student film festivals, contests, so I try and pull together as many things and send that out. So I want to put the link in there to subscribe to that as well. And that's a good way for folks to get information about what's out there. Mia, do you guys have a listserv type e-blast situation? I have never asked you that. I don't know why.
Yeah. And what makes me think about today that I could share as a resource besides Credit Careers Online actually, is that I'm actually part of the Los Angeles County Arts Ed Collective, which is one of the largest collectives of arts educators, nonprofits, community-based organizations, teachers, and the like. And what we do is we actually convene arts coordinators every quarter, and we share out resources. And our colleague at LACO, Janine Flores, has put together an absolutely robust list of resources from each of these convenings. So I will try to find that link for you. And then also on our site, the LA County Arts Ed Collective, there's information about grants. We provide advancement grants of up to $25,000 for school districts in Los Angeles County who have developed some form of an arts ed plan. And we also offer free coaching for school districts to be able to build a plan. And that's done in a very equitable and engaging way. And all of this is free. And then there's also Department of Arts and Culture has grants and opportunities for educators as well.
And I just dropped in the chat a VizDev portfolio that one of our employer partners sent to us early on in terms of a sample that they loved. And so I thought that might be a useful tool for all the folks here who are interested in seeing some exemplars. And we'll have more. Diana will be pulling those. But it was very interesting, I have to say, for our applicants. We had some employers, I got 450 applicants. We had some employers like, asked to meet the same humans. So there's something special about those portfolios, right? They're going to stand out like that in that type of batch. So, all right. So other questions for this team here? We still have some time, so I want to make sure we get to everybody.
I actually have a document that has all the resources on one page, so I'll do that.
Oh, sweet.
I just remembered.
And I'll
that.
drop in the chat. I'll drop in the chat the AME Institute. Well, it's on my website, I think, the California AME Schools website, which the old one, for those of you who used it and had it listed, was like taken over by some like Asian gambling company that wanted me to pay for my URL to get back. It was a whole dispute with GoDaddy. Anyways, we have a new one, and it's .org and .com. So don't use .net anymore, but this is the California AME Schools site that has a listserv. So if you go to join our email list at the very bottom of the homepage, you will get all of the information and e-blast sent out monthly. So that is our new landing page, and it needs a little copy work, but it is up and running again, thankfully. All right, any other questions in the audience? Or for panelists to each other?
I've always got questions. I want to know from the panelists lots of things. First, have you talked to your students at all about the advancement of artificial intelligence apps and how that might affect future employment rates?
Diana's head's nodding.
Yes, no, I just wasn't sure if Mojo was going because I also saw you were unmuted. Did you want to go?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've definitely talked about in terms of we have two sections in our department. We have critical media and we have production. And we've noticed in critical media, we had a student try to AI generate a paper. And luckily we were able to catch it because there was one sentence that really didn't make sense. And I think like if we weren't able to catch that one sentence, it was like such a well-written paper, and it passed our like copyright applications that we use to like do those checks and see if that's out there in the internet. So we definitely had conversations with students about that. Starting this semester, everybody had to sign a contract about academic integrity. I've also had students specifically like in my digital design class that would take a piece of artwork and live trace it in Illustrator and say that they made it. So we've already had conversations about that, about like what is like the amount of changing that you need to do and like attribution if you're using art. So we've had a couple of those conversations in place, but now with the extra layer and challenge of AI, of really kind of addressing, you know, like, sure, maybe you typed in the keywords, but the art that it's pulling from is not your art. And is it arranged in a way that you can then call yourself a creator? So we have definitely had those conversations already, but in terms of like academic policies, I've seen a lot more sprout up over this past semester about like what applications you can and can't do, pros and cons of things like that. And then definitely from working on set where we used to license art, and the last shoot that I was on, they actually AI generated the art for the production design so that they didn't have to license it. And they're like, oh, and it's like royalty free. And just as an educator on that film set, I was just like, hold on, can we just pause for a second and talk about this? Because this is like not where we should head as a production design team in terms of how we set dress. And they're just like, Diana, we know that you're a teacher. And I was like, nope, this is going to be my next mission. So that's already come up several times.
Yeah, and John, like Nicole is leading, the Concept Art Association is leading the entire like effort in terms of the copyright infringement, the scraping of the internet for artists' work in order to generate databases. So if you have any questions around AI, I definitely highly recommend you talk to Nicole. She is insanely educated and informed in this space. The conversations I've had really have been interesting. First of all, teach your students how to draw hands. Have you ever seen AI generated hands? That is going to save artists. Like, they don't know if they'll ever figure out hands or teeth. Like, teeth and hands are always really weird. I know, right? Like, it's all bad. But I'm joking. But there's a huge movement that the Concept Art Association has led, and in terms of the I don't know, the value of what an artist can do, especially in the revision and refinement process. It's like never going to be replicated, because you can't, as of right now, well, I shouldn't say never, you never know what's going to happen. But as of right now, you can't be like, I want to adjust this, like, the length of this costume by a centimeter on the right arm or whatever. I mean, maybe you could do that in AI, but I don't think so. So I think there's always going to be a need for artists. It's just a matter of like how those needs and rules shift versus become obsolete. I think that's the attitude that I've heard. But
And I tell my students, like, if you're going to use something like that, or even if it's like something from an asset store in Unreal Marketplace, like if you're going to use like a environment, add something like your own mojo to it, like add your flavor to it. You take the parts that you want from it and don't just like complete. I do music as well, so it's like sampling kind of. So like using like something to build off of is good, but just trying to take it and just claim a piece for your own. But I like, and I tell you, like, you get more satisfaction out of building something your own. So taking it from a concept and using it with your work, all good. But like, if you're just gonna have something generate something for you and say, yeah, this, I'm an artist, it's how you want to go about it.
I wanted to talk like a little bit about the opportunities for trainings for teachers that are going on. Brick is partnering with the AME Institute, as they have years in past, and doing in June, we have a big event in Burbank, and we are doing a bunch of tech trainings. But then beyond that, I've been working with like Snapchat, and there's a real need for AR developers and people who are proficient in their lens software for like making filters, right? So we're going to do some AR development trainings for teachers. Foundry's leaning in. We're going to do Nuke trainings for teachers. So, I want to make sure everyone knows that a whole bunch of the stuff that we're saying should be taught is really not something that we expect everyone to just know. So we're going to backfill with professional development, so teachers feel like they have the tools and skill sets. So here's the link for the AME Institute. We do have a pop-up in March in Oakland, and there is also a new student summit that is live this year. It's actually in Watts, on the edge of Watts in South LA, called the Grid Student Summit. So that is something, thanks Mia. And then finally, great. And then finally, Matt and John can speak a little bit to the community of practices that we've set up for teachers every single month. Janelle is she's a facilitator. She's here in the audience, but we do try and make a monthly space for industry to be able to share out, or partners and nonprofit partners to be able to share out opportunities with teachers, and then teachers to talk to teachers in a breakout room at least once a month about it's like literally this conversation, I think. I mean, I haven't been in a while, so like, forgive me if I'm wrong, but talk about what you heard and then like talk to each other. So, that's also something that you can sign up for. On the virtual programming on the AME website that I just put in the chat. So I want to make sure people know there's an opportunity for ongoing conversation. There's opportunity to engage with these educators on a monthly basis. And John, you had another question. Okay, wait. What discussions have been had about standardized equipment and software license for teaching animation production skills? Interesting question. So do you mean what do you mean? Standardized equipment and software?
I mean, like when I wrote my grants, I went to Disney Feature Animation. I had some of their software engineers and people that ran their network write letters to say, we use this equipment. So that way I could mirror that when I was applying with my grants to say, I need workstation class computers, I need Cintiqs, I need, you know, this, that, and extra. So I just wanted to know, is there any effort being made to try to create like a standardized list so that when schools
Yeah.
develop these animation pathways, they know what to order or what needs to be in the classroom?
100%. So that was something that was fascinating from our early advisory meetings. So we had found that we heard like hands down across the board, everyone has to be baseline proficient in Adobe, which was interesting. Nuke was standard. We have employers in VFX, you can't even get through the door without Nuke proficiency, but that wasn't being taught in schools. And we're like, oh, you know, and then in terms of hardware, you know, we know in order Unreal and Unity are both industry standard. Our employers are like, oh, they need to know all of it. Like our conversation with Riot is like, they want people versatile in Blender and Unity and Unreal in all of the things, and just understanding gaming engines, right? Like that's what that's about, Maya or whatever. So being versatile and being able to transfer that knowledge on those specific tools is really important. And we know in order to use those tools, which are many of which are open source, and even Autodesk will give free Maya licenses to schools, the computers are hecka expensive. I mean, it's like a big, heavy machine that requires a lot of power, right, to run that stuff. So we're looking at certain virtualization solutions for people who can't get those machines. Like if you just have Chromebooks, but that will actually allow equity because your students can take the Chromebooks home, but work on a virtual machine. So really figuring out what virtualization solutions industry is using. It was a funny question up front because I have districts coming to me with this all the time, right? And I was like, so everyone, what do you use in terms of computers? And across the board, everyone's like, well, for my personal life, I only use Apples, but for my professional life, we only use PCs. And that was universal with our animation professionals, with our VFX professionals. I don't know if it's as much so in the 2D space, but definitely in the 3D space and in the visual effects. So I would say like in the design space, I'm sure Diana's like totally, I mean, maybe not Apple for life. I'm Apple for life, but it doesn't necessarily translate to a lot of these gaming engines. So if you're in the gaming space, you have to be able to pivot with a different operating session, with a different operating system, with a different type of machine. And I think versatility is really important. I can help with that question. So if you ever have a hang up from your district in terms of solutions, come to me. I can provide industry vetted lists for you. I think I can even publish those on the site. In terms of Cintiqs, Wacom hands down is used in studios. That is industry standard. So that's something that we have pretty much locked in from all of our partners, that kids should be learning how to draw on tablets, on Wacom tablets specifically. So that transfers to the workplace. Yeah, so and those work for both 2D and 3D. And so that's something I've talked to them a lot about. Other things here, Diana, maybe you talk a little bit about what you're using in the design, UX and UI space, because I'm not supposed to slash UX UI. It's UX and UI design. You're in the chat. Okay, cool. So Apple for life, but you teach on PC for game design. See, so
Yeah,
that's something.
But it's funny because like we have a Mac lab and not a PC lab, but
That's hilarious.
can't. I mean, like I used to teach Unreal on my Mac and it just like crashes halfway through
How?
class. And I, like,
Yeah,
lost
I was
my
gonna say,
lesson.
how do you
And
do
so
that?
I'll teach on a PC, but all my students are using Macs. It's
Yeah,
Unreal is a beast.
it's a beast. And there's a lot of, so I don't know how many educators in here like up against IT department hangups. So we had a big thing. This has been a big issue that we've seen statewide in terms of like, oh, let's train everyone. So actually Epic Games is having a whole pivot in their strategy for education. So like we trained up 40 teachers, 36-hour trainings in Unreal, Twinmotion, and Fortnite, and they leaned in, and then they got to their classrooms and their IIT departments wouldn't let them use Unreal in their classrooms. And so how do we rectify that and solve for that? Unreal has created an offline downloader system. So there's no sign in and you can actually install assets in your classroom. It's a pain in the butt. It takes time, but they will help you and walk you through it. And they will work with your
Oh.
IT departments to make that possible. So if you've had challenges getting Unreal access in your classroom due to some of the barriers, please reach out to me. I will connect you to Steve and he will instantly connect you with the offline downloader to solve for that.
Yeah.
It's been a little more challenging in oh yeah, Steve was here earlier, right? Thanks, Matt. You're right. He was. That's Steve Isaac. So he's our partner for the Unreal education stuff, and he's rad. Super helpful. Okay, great. Toon Boom has also created some incredible stuff, like kind of teacher ready, and Toon Boom is hands down industry standard for 2D, right? So we're starting to learn. We've heard from our industry partners. Other things work for teaching. I think transferability of skills is the most important thing. Like, hey, you can do this in this software package or this software package, but it's the skills that you need to be able to apply to whatever you're using. So cool. I think Nicole's here. Hey, yay. We'll close out.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of the BRIC Summit. I love just ending this way. And just thank you all so much for being here. We did it. We made it through the 2023 BRIC Summit. Woo! And we'll see you all next year in person, and definitely virtually. And just thank you.
Thanks, friend. Good job. Amazing job.
Likewise.
Diana,
Yeah.
Stacy, Melissa, everybody on the BRIC team, Nicole. Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you
good
for
time.
having
And
us.
you too, Allison.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.